Beautiful, beautiful beloved humans, bringers of change. Oh, so I have a lot of energy incoming in a very large activation. My nervous system is quite fired. My fight, flight, freeze response is definitely on, so I will do the best of my ability to communicate to you with clarity. Just looking at the volume, for some reason it looks like it's loud. Why is it not very loud? Yeah, anyway, so if you're jumping on, please let me know how the volume is. If you're present, say hello. So I just moved through probably one of the most profound initiations that I have experienced, being an oracle and I guess a prophet in my abilities. It has been the ability that I've run from my entire life at 11:22. The ability that I have fought, I've tried to control. The ability that has made me see, feel, and be the most unseen, the most misunderstood, the most confused in my reality from my human lens. The part of me that I have fought to shut off, to not be right. The part of me that I have fought to shut off, to not have to speak into the uncomfortable truths that exist. And for me, I have chosen to be a victim to my own visions and a victim to my own abilities and a victim to not accepting the truth, and instead chosen a level of despair at different times because I have not wanted to fully own this aspect of me, of that which I chose to be. And so through a very uncomfortable initiation today, the recognition and very profound recognition that I can see the future, I can see the timelines, I can see what's playing out, I can see the distortions in my own life and in others, and yet I've chosen to ignore them because I have wanted to believe, have faith, and this is a false light narrative. And so I know there are many, many different individuals out there that have said that I have false light aspects, and I'm the first person to tell you that I have got false light energy because I am not unified with God in totality. So there will always be shadow, there will always be manipulation until we can fully come into the direct, true, clearest channel of God. At times there will be that within my being, and I'm not going to deny it or say that it's not there, because I know I am not. If I was completely unified with God, I would not be here. I am still a human, and what is fucking profound about that, and so incredibly profound, is that if there's something that is distorted within my own consciousness, I'm willing to see it, look at it, and redirect. And what's even more profound is that my higher self, my monad, and my source connection actually won't even let me step off my path anymore. Because I'm so devoted, I'm so disciplined, that if my human, one-lensed part of me even tries to manipulate reality away from the highest truth of what God is sharing, I am met with a redirection where my monadic self or my higher self takes over, and it's no longer an unconscious thing, it's a very conscious thing to create whatever experience, and that may be through contrast, conflict, through chaos, through the things that are not desired, because there's a part of the human that still believes and has so much trust and faith that I can change the path, right? So this is the oracle or the prophet's biggest challenge. Someone who's a seer is the belief that I can see it, but I can change it, that I can play God. And I just can't. God plays me, really. As a conduit, I am the vessel for God. God plays me. I am at complete surrender and yield. I have absolutely no control over my life anymore. And in that, it's beautiful, and it's also really uncomfortable. Because at this point in my evolution, I have to share things with the collective that I don't want to share. Because I'm not okay with them. Because I don't want them to be real. Because I don't want us to head down the path that we're heading down. And so the part of me that still wants to control reality wants to keep that information to myself. I don't want to share what I know because I'm scared that if I speak it out, I speak it into existence. I'm scared and fearful that God's plan is not the highest plan. That I am not accepting that we are choosing the timeline of chaos before order, and I am so okay to share that because I know that I actually can't step off it. Because this is the path that we've chosen, and on this path there is extreme chaos. And if you've seen any of the current channels, I am going to unpack them to the best of my ability with my fired nervous system and the amount of frequency that's running through my body, and speaking to you from the very realness of the human that I am. Doing my absolute best. And still feeling as though I am fucking it up. And so if you've seen these channels, there was two specific. Currently, so to give you some behind the scenes expression of this, the reason that I think I can play God is because I am a reincarnation of one of the original Anunnaki. The Anunnaki that believed that they could control the world. The Anunnaki of the gods and the goddesses that are falsely worshipped because they are not gods. They are not gods. None of us are gods. And we are powerless to God. God trumps all. And so in this knowing, which I have known for many, many years, and tried to clear and transmute and purify and release the distortions so that I do not play into these brainwashed ideas and the trauma responses that still sit within my molecular structure of my cells, we are in a current phase that we are at the point of when the original creation of Earth took place. And so if you were there, even if you weren't there, it's an opportunity to recognize that we cannot control the evolution of the planet, yet we can choose how we respond to it. We can choose to be aware. We can choose to come into love and compassion and forgiveness for ourselves and for others. That the very reason that our life experience is this way is because people try to control the plan, the path. That beings that thought that they were as powerful as God could create better than God. It is just not true. And in that is where the patriarchy created. In that is where separation was created. In that, the forgetting of the authentic self, the channel of source took place. And in that, we are at a point where there is an opportunity to dissolve those distortions and come into true source connection. And when you declare that you are not God, that God moves through you, flows through you, and you can be a vessel and a channel and speak the word. If you've devoted yourself to that like I have, it doesn't matter whether I speak from my human or whether I speak from my channeled expression, I am still God's vessel. I am the instrument, and I will speak out of tune, but it will still be the tune that Source desires to speak through me. And so that is where I'm powerless, but that is where I realize the power of what is. And so these prophetic visions, I've been fighting God to speak out about. I have been controlling at the detriment of my own body. I have been watching my nervous system go into a fight, flight, freeze response and to start to break down over the last week and a half because I did not want to accept God's plan that we are currently on. And knowing that the plan can shift and move at every moment, that is what I've been holding on to instead of the reality. Why is it that humanity is in such fuckery? Because we don't want to accept reality. Because we don't want to sit in the discomfort. We don't want to sit in the point of, if we sit in the discomfort of reality, then we choose. We would rather stay in illusion, denial, manipulation, distortion. Because that is way more comfortable for us. By staying in discomfort, I mean, in the comfort of the illusion, by staying in that, then we disempower ourselves and we just let life happen to us. But the reality of the current situation is that we are on a timeline where there is prophesied extreme weather conditions, and the weather conditions that are taking place will affect high vibrational states of land, sacred sites, and areas around the world that the agendas that desire anti-consciousness are going to specifically target and destroy, so that in the awareness of the evolution, they can evolve the planet in the direction that they desire. And this is the timeline that we're on. And as soon as it changes, I will be the first person to tell you. But whilst we are on this timeline, we need to be aware of it. Because the funny thing about reality is that this is all predetermined. We are on a cycle, and this cycle is unchangeable. The cycle of evolution can be however it is perceived. We could evolve into higher states of union, or we could evolve into further severance, destruction, and separation. That is the reality. That is truth. That is uncomfortable. And in the current expression of what is moving forward, because I can't play God, but I'm asked to speak in relation to this awareness that has been here for months, and I have not wanted to, is that whilst these weather, natural, not so natural disasters, as they call it to me, happen, and you can see it in our weather systems, you're being pre-prepared. If you live on the Sunshine Coast, down to Byron, up towards Mackay, Townsville, even Cairns. If you're in this southeast coast, it's because what you'll see is the weather manipulation is taking place so that the land is saturated. If the soil is already saturated, it means that when the heavy downpours take place, that flooding is imminent. The floods that happened two years ago that devastated the northern rivers, they were the floods that were the experiment of the geoengineering of the weather systems. A test run. And the actual weather events that are going to take place are expected to start to take place in May. And if we are not aware of this, and I can't play God, so I can share this, I can't change it, I can bring awareness to it, and we can all work on the earth grids, we can all work on sending healing, we can work on talking to the waterways, the rivers, we can bring awareness, we can ask ourselves in self-reflection, what would I do if my house was in a flood zone? I am in a flood zone. If it floods like I've seen it flood, my house will go underwater completely. And I've seen my entire suburb go underwater. This is uncomfortable. If you don't know what a great deluge is, a deluge is a weather event that takes place when the evolution has hit a tipping point. So what that means is that a certain cycle has shifted into a new frequency. What that means for you is that we are in the age of Aquarius. That is the tipping point. We have entered a new level of consciousness. If we look back at history, Lemuria was flooded at the time that Atlantis came in. That was a shift in tipping point of the evolution of consciousness. It evolved into a more advancement of technology and not spirituality. So let's be clear about that. Atlantis is not all rainbows and butterflies or dolphins and whales. Atlantis is quite a manipulated timeline that has a lot of geoengineering, genetic modifications, AI technology, Archon technology, holographic templates that were placed, cloning, all sorts of advancements that may be perceived or glorified in how evolved it was, but it was against the freedom and sovereignty of humanity. And at the end of the period of Atlantis, that also was a great deluge where there was a flooding point, and what took place was a shift into, I believe, the time of multiple timelines. The timelines overlap. You may have heard different timelines have different names because history is extremely distorted and manipulated. So there are several names to several timelines, but we could call this one maybe Babylon is a good one. And then you go into the timeline of ancient Egypt and so on, and there is multiple deluges that have occurred, and this is the point of knowing when there was a shift in consciousness. And if you are intuitive enough to feel the consciousness level of these different timelines, they all hold extremely different frequency bands. So a frequency band is the level of frequency that one's consciousness can move in, the furthest points of the ups and the downs. And it's just a point of vibrational resonance that can be interpreted. Now, we have shifted as a collective our frequency band. And in this shift, it shifts on the molecular structure of the earth. And the earth currently needs to realign its chakra systems. The current chakra system cannot hold the frequency that we have just moved into. The age of the Aquarius, the beginning of the golden planet, whatever you want to call it. We are still only at the very initiations and activations. You will not see union in your lifetime. I can guarantee you that, and that is science, that is evolution, that is the uncomfortable truth. You, however, may be able to experience inner union as a Christos being, but you will not see humanity become unified. They are not meant to. That would be too fast. You cannot skip steps of evolution. That is logical and that is the truth, and I dislike logic. because I wanted to play God. And I can't. I can only surrender to God's plan and share these aspects, because denial is an illusion. And so as we have shifted the frequency band, the chakra systems, the grid lines, the ley lines all need to restructure. Now how that looks is that you have land change, you have waterways change, you have the earth grids and earthquakes, and all sorts of different things happen because there's no other way. Absolutely no other way. Those lines have to change to support a new frequency band on the earth. And the 3D to 5D shift for humanity requires this shift of evolution. Now, if we had enough of individuals like you and I that spent time working on asking the earth to change in a peaceful, calm, gentle way, nurturing, if we worked with the earth grids, if we worked with the chakra systems, if we spoke to Uluru, Uluru will no longer be the solar plexus of the earth. It's already started to move. If you're not aware of the amount of military, if you're not aware of the amount of underground bases under that beautiful rock, then you're still living in the illusion. You are not woke, waking, aware. And it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. But we are required, if we are really here for union, to do this in a more unified way, to not lay down and just allow this to unfold. If it is not accepted, yes, we can see it as what it is happening, and we can accept that we are on this current timeline, but we don't have to agree to it. We do not have to give up our sovereign free will or our choice or our connection to God. We can choose actively to say, this is not the path that I choose. This is not the path I'm creating. And start to work with the earth, start to work with the atmosphere. Now, what is taking place in this imminent must? The earth's chakra systems, the ley lines, the grid lines, the cosmic grids of the earth, they are all changing. They have to. That's inevitable. How we change that is up to us. In the current timeline, it is done through worldwide natural, not so natural disasters. Now, in that point of chaos, when there is the homes being destroyed and the people losing their lives, and the devastation of our hearts and humanity's hearts breaking open in that shift of evolvement, because that's what will happen. Their heart chakras will open. Then, whilst we are all focused on community, love, helping each other out, grieving our loved ones, the governmental structures are going to shift and change. It is what is considered to be a decoy or a distraction mechanism. Now, I do not play into politics. I do not like to look at the government agencies. I see things and I'm aware of them, but I do not read into them. I am not a conspiracy theorist, although you may think. Whilst this is taking place, the entire financial system will collapse and be reformed in a way that whilst you're looking over here, you're not realizing what's going on over here. It is the way that they have worked since the beginning of time. Humanity has always been under these governmental structures and this patriarchal way of manipulation. It has not been any different. Every single incarnation that I have revisited, rectified, reconciled, purified has been exactly the same. Exactly the same. And so the reason I have not spoken to this is because I didn't want to repeat the past. And so I was sitting in denial of sharing. Because it is not my chosen way. So the awareness and the guidance is to look at what will happen if the financial system collapses. How are you going to support yourself? Have you looked into different investments that will keep you alive? Gold, silver, crypto, the different banking systems that are out of these structures, worldwide currency. Now, there is awareness that the structures are going to collapse and they need to rebuild. We've known this since COVID. We've been waiting and waiting and waiting. It was premature. Everything the 144 bringer of changes sees is premature. Remember that for your own journey. When you are guided in a vision to do something or to create something, that's the initiation, that's the original thought form. You have to go through a creation process, initiation, clearing, purifying, solidifying, and then you can create. It is a long step of evolution. Now you can speed it up with awareness, but if you try and create when you're in the initiation or activation stage, you are going to create something that is going to fall down and collapse. And so, although we have been aware of this, and there's a part of the brain, there's a part of the human psyche, there's a part of each and every one of us that wants to say, well, we've thought this before and nothing happened, so we're safe. This is the exact reason, right? Because they have been controlling humanity on universal law since the beginning. They know the cycles. They know how polarity and duality works. They use everything in this creation to manipulate and distort. That is the truth. So if you can understand universal law, if you can understand light and dark, if you can understand up and down, as within, so without, if you can just some of the basic ones, if you can really grasp them, then you won't be at the effects of the manipulation of them. That is what is taking place. That is the current truth. That is going to start in May. There was an earthquake that I predicted and many others in Japan last year. I saw it on multiple occasions, and it was an earthquake that was to create a tsunami and to poison and disrupt the sacred waterways that are inside the Japanese mountains. Now, this was something that was very clear and it was very seen, and the amount of genetic modification that was taking place in the atmosphere of Japan for a long period, I believed didn't happen. I believed that although I saw this vision countless times, that it didn't manifest. Japan got hit by an earthquake and a tsunami last month. And Nostradamus predicted it, as well as the great flooding of 2024. Cycles are why they can be predicted. That is why, because we are cycling a loop of creation. And it doesn't matter how conscious and healed we are evolving, and the earth is changing. So what are you going to do with this information? What are you going to do? What questions can you ask yourself instead of holding fear? How are you going to prepare yourself? Now look, if it doesn't happen, if it doesn't manifest, then I will be the happiest fucking person on the planet. Every part of me wants to be wrong. And I would not be speaking from this point if I wasn't absolutely sure that we were heading in that direction. Because my desire is to guide people into union, to love, to step out of fear. And it's very hard to share messages like this and not create fear. And yet maybe the fear is what is required to look at. How do I transmute that into empowerment? How do I transmute that into awareness? How do I prepare myself? How do I choose to respond in a way that is true for me? So I'll give you a couple of options at this point with the awareness that I have. Cultivate a daily meditation where you communicate to the chakras and the earth grids and our great mother Geeia or Sister Tara to realign the molecular structure of the earth in a way that is supportive to life. Supportive to life. To honoring life, to see this shift in your mind's eye, in your heart, in your feeling, to feel a more unified way of evolving. And do it every day. And look at your current geographical location, and are you in a very spiritual, sacred hotspot? If you are, you may be in a location that is going to be targeted. If you are in a location that has a large conscious community, are you in a flood zone? And if you are in a flood zone, what will you do? Have you got a flood plan? Are you happy to let go of all of your belongings? Have you mastered the art of non-attachment? Plan. Be aware. If Australia, specifically, but this is not limited to Australia, this is actually a worldwide question, goes into another lockdown based on bad weather and being unsafe to fly, would you want to be stuck here? This might be your exit ticket. What is your source guidance? Go and sit with God. Go and sit with your higher self. Go and ask, what is my part in this? What do I need to prepare for? How do I need to become aware? How can I hold myself? Do I have to accept things about reality that I wanted to stay in denial about? Because I wasn't willing to surrender to the plan. Because I've been trying to control it, dictate it, resist it. And then journal. If this is the path, and you're holding back on your soul's purpose, if you're holding back on being your potential, are you okay with that? Are you okay with that? If the world is going to hit a chaos point, are you okay with where you're at in your own life right now? And if you're not, what are you going to do? What changes are you going to make? What parts of yourself are you going to let go of? How are you going to step into more of your fullness? And I hate to say it, but humanity, most of us like to learn through fucking pain. Most of us like to destroy rather than create. Because when we destroy, then we rebuild. But instead, we don't have to do it that way. We can create, and in the process of creating, destroy and let go of the old constructs. We don't have to choose chaos. We don't have to fuck our lives up to purge away what doesn't serve us anymore. Pain and choosing to grow through pain and hardship is not real. Yet that's what most of us are choosing. What wants to be said? The heart of humanity is activating. If we looked at the collective, and we look at the collective in the way of the collective being a light body, right? You have a light body, the collective has a light body. We all make up the one collective light body. Now the collective light body is going through its second initiate phase, okay? So the initiate phases are what I teach in mystery school. They are the process of activating, clearing, purifying, and keeping the chakra open. And when you open all 7, you are considered to be an enlightened being. That depends on your perspective. I live with all 7 of my chakras open. Enlightenment is not what I perceived it to be. When you are in your second initiate phase, this is the heart chakra. The first is the crown. In our current evolutionary process, this is non-negotiable. This just is. It's a cycle. It is an energy frequency. It is why I can predict things. It's why I can help individuals step by step go through a pragmatic process to move through their trauma instead of poking around in the dark. Accelerate it. Have it happen with more ease, intention, awareness. So we are in a collective light body, that we are in the second initiate phase, which is the heart activating. The crown has activated. The crown activated in COVID. That's when you started to see people go, oh, reality isn't quite what I thought it was. Oh, I can see the agendas with the vaccines. Oh, they lied to us. Oh, this was all a scam. That was the activation of the light body of the collective's crown. Now that does not mean it is cleared. It's not. It's active. So there is an ability in the collective whole to see outside of the box of conditioning. Now, when you have an activation of the heart, anyone who has gone through an awakening will usually remember the heart the most, because you experience heartbreak. You experience the most excruciating pain in your chest that you have ever felt. You experience loss. You experience grief. You experience what needs to break your heart open. So as an individual, if your heart is open, you have experienced this. Have a look at what that was for you. My marriage ended. I nearly committed myself into a D ward because I thought I was insane. The heart, when it opens, has to purge all of the unfelt feelings of lack of love, self-worth. This is the part of most individuals' journey which they would call the self-love part, where you realize that you have not loved yourself at all and you've actually don't even know what love feels like. That is about to take place on a collective whole. The activation of that is going to be extremely uncomfortable. When did your heart break open? Can you imagine that on a mass scale? That is a lot of pain. But we all know that when your heart breaks open, on the other side of it is immense connection, immense joy, immense unification. When you are raw in it, it is the most uncomfortable thing you have ever felt. You are so vulnerable. I cried every day for 18 months. So this is what this coming phase is. Now, how do you break a heart open? The heart breaks open through loss, through grief, through pain. Well, that's how we're choosing it to anyway. How can we assist the heart to open without this? In ourselves and in others. How can we work on the collective light body? If you are a psychic, if you are a healer, if you are someone who is even listening to this, you are gifted. You wouldn't be listening to me otherwise. There would be absolutely no value for you on this call, other than to claim insanity. I am of sound heart and sound mind. Apparently that's how I was supposed to start all of my videos, but I'm not sure I feel aligned with that today because I feel slightly on edge. And I'm okay with that because all of the great beings of this earth were considered insane. And they were not understood until they were dead. So I'm accepting that also. Work on the collective light body. Work on holding the collective in your own body, holding your own heart open, talking to the collective, telling them they can open their heart through love and not through pain. Use your telepathic abilities. You all have them. Every single one of you has these. Your thoughts create things, literally. Talk, pray, commune. When you are doing your inner shadow work, see that you are not separate from the collective and gift your remembrance to them. Gift your remembrance to the earth. Gift your remembrance to the ether, as above, so below, as within, so without. To assist this process, there is an awareness that the mind-heart coherence will take place in a collective whole. That is a beautiful thing. Once you can start to have mind-heart coherence, you can start to hear God. Before mind-heart coherence, you cannot hear intuition. You cannot hear guidance. You cannot receive source, because your mind and your heart have to be able to interpret the frequency through the brain's neural pathways, through the Kundalini current, to make sense of what is of ego and what is of a higher guided expression. That brings a lot of possibility to the collective. A lot of hope, faith, change, a new way. So although this may be a very challenging video to listen to, there is always a rainbow at the other end of the pot of gold. Nice metaphor. The reason that's so funny is because the rainbows are a symbolism that we are moving into the new timeline where the golden planet exists. Have you noticed there's been a lot of rainbows? Doubles, triples, neon. Quite interesting. I will open up quickly to answer any questions on clarity. There is nothing else I feel called to share at this point in time, other than if this resonates and you want to bring awareness, please share it. Other than I will continue to update you with each moment of information for the collective whole and for the greater good of all beings, and that I am devoted and committed to listening to God first and speaking what Source desires to speak through me, even in a place of instability within myself. I will do my very, very, very best to listen and act before it becomes hectic in my physical body and that I am forced by my inner guidance system to show up in a way that is very uncomfortable on social media. Also raw, real, authentic. God, source, creator is one. There is only one creator of all things. We are all a part of creation. We are not creator, yet we are the creations of the one creator, which means that we are creator beings. We all have a creative expression, a spark, an essence that sits within God, and yet there are also beings that do not have this spark. The spark 1212 is what is considered the spark of creation. The beings that do not hold the spark of creation are what would be considered that of not of God. Not of God is what you would consider to be an archon energy or dark matter consciousness. There are beings on this earth and also in other dimensional planes of existence that do not have the Holy Grail or the divine spark of source, because they were not created by the one creator. Now, this is a very complex theory and conversation to be having, and I'm glad that you asked. Because the energies that are not of God cannot return to God, because they do not have that spark. They need to be recreated into a different form of matter at a higher evolutionary expression. So if you look at something that is not of God, something that does not have a divine spark, that is not what we would consider in Christianity having a Holy Spirit, that is what you would consider Satan consciousness or descended demonic. Not demonic. Demonic energies can still have holy sparks. They've just forgotten God. But Satan consciousness is without a Holy Spirit. Satan consciousness created. Everything can create. We are in the creation space until we go into the non-creation space, which is the void, where there is no creation. There are beings that appear to be of organic life form. Organic life form is that which holds the Holy Spirit, yet they are not. They are holographic programs. There are vessels like this that have a consciousness within them that is a computer program. This is why you see certain things play out in the world that you cannot comprehend playing out in the world. Because what God, source creator, would create a world where that would take place? No God. The true one source God would not do that. And the only way those things can exist in our experience is if they were created from not of God. And so that is an uncomfortable aspect of reality. And individual beings like myself that know these things around our reality that have been suppressed and hidden from you. You want to know reality? I'll give you a reality check. Go watch Rebel Moon and imagine that that's not sci-fi and everything in that movie is real. I wanted to do a breakdown and a share of that, and I just have not had the space. But that movie, if you can open your mind to see that everything in that movie is real in some form of dimensional expression in our current reality, it will blow your fucking mind apart. Because you are not living in the world that you think you're living in. And so in that question around God and Source being the same, the separation consciousness that is of draconian, we'll say. The draconian agenda at the moment is the one that is being purged or deconstructed, destroyed, released. This is what you would consider the unconscious dark masculine energy. This will show up within yourself, in your internal and your external. There will be some level of draconian energy. It is also what you would consider to be the overt narcissist and the behavioral traits and personality traits that show up there. This consciousness, to come into a more unified timeline, requires to be looked at within ourselves and to be purified so that we can return more to Source. Because we, even with a holy spark, a holy grail, are not living from that space of living through that lens. We are still living from a separation consciousness, that of ego construct. Ego construct, ego is that is Satan. Your ego is Satan. As much as we can love our ego, and our ego has kept us safe, if we didn't grow up or be born into a world that even had satanic consciousness, we wouldn't require an ego, because we would be born into a reality where love, union, we wouldn't need to cry for food because our mothers would be so in tune that they would pick us up and they would feed us. We wouldn't be fearful of abandonment and thinking that we will die if our parents leave us, because they would be holding us or we would be passed around. It just wouldn't exist. The ego is not born into the child. The ego is created in the fragmentation through separation. The ego is the sum of experiences that creates the belief systems that keep you safe. Because you were born into a world that is not safe, and that's the reality. That we cannot currently birth children into this world and have them without ego. Because we are not evolved enough. Therefore, we can accept that we're going to fuck our kids up. Make peace with that. Start a diary. I'm sorry that I fucked you up in this way. I take full ownership for my responsibility of my wounds and my patterns and my behaviors, and I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. God's plan is God's plan. I can't tell you God's plan. I'm a mere human. I can't tell you the big picture because I have a limited lens of receiving. And I'm an amazing channel. And I can still only see a small portion of information. Which is why I require other individual beings to stand up in this way with me, so that we can bring a broader picture to bring awareness so we can work together. None of us can do this alone. And quite frankly, I'm fucking tired of it. So God's plan is to save God's children. God wants every single child of the earth to return to him, her, Mother, Father, God. God's children to remember what they are in their purity. That is all God's plan is. God's plan is that you remember that you are a sacred, holy child of Source. And that in that, Source gets to understand Source through the mirrors of each other. Consciousness gets to unfold and see consciousness on top of itself in front of another. That is creation, evolution, and understanding. Further deepening into the cosmic consciousness that is infinite in nature, and you see one aspect of yourself and then you continue to deepen that. There is no end point. There is no finish line. You will constantly meet shadow aspects of yourself, whether you're in this plane of existence or whether you're on a different plane of existence. 1222. You will continue to see the shadow. And you can either work with this as being the truth, that shadow and light coexist, and free yourself from being controlled by your shadow by accepting this, and start to return through the shadow to Source, to remembering your holy essence, and life will become a little more easy, whilst also being a little more hard. And this is why enlightenment is not what it's fucking cracked up to be. None of those books we read that are about being in peace and harmony is real. Because the reality is that you live in a reality where every single feeling and emotion exists. And if you can manage to stay in peace and harmony consistently, you are denying reality. You are denying God, and you have bypassed the very existence of universal truth that has created you. Where there is light, there is dark. When you are up, you are down. That is the peace. The peace is in the recognition that no matter how evolved I am, I'm going to feel angry. No matter how evolved I am, I'm going to cry. No matter how evolved I am, I'm going to see things that I am confused, don't understand, or continue to expand my awareness. That's the truth. That is the spiral. Any other teaching is teaching you a delusion. And you'll find the most sovereignty in this. Accepting the truth. That's freedom. That is peace. When you can say that everything is true and not true at the same time. Where you can say that what I'm saying is authentic and also probably inauthentic at the same time. That where there is feminine, there is masculine. Where there is love, there is rage. Where there is peace, there is conflict. That is the truth, and accepting that, coming to terms with that, really seeing that is where you can start to use your entire brain, your left and your right hemispheres in the way that it was designed, where you can start to tap into superhuman abilities, where you can start to activate your chakra systems, where you can start to transcend the limitation of the human construct. But don't believe that you're going to meet a point of bliss and stay there, because that defies reality. Except that when I experience bliss, at at some point I'm also going to experience what is none of bliss, loss, grief, sadness, destruction. So that when it shows up, you are not devastated. So when it shows up, you can work with it with awareness. So that when it shows up, you can hold your heart and you can hold others when they don't understand. I love you. Ahava, God bless. I will do my very best to come into these following transmissions in a more grounded, peaceful, less activated, less traumatized state.